Fighting Blindness Canada's Young Leaders Program is a career-oriented initiative that provides young people, aged 15 to 30, who are blind or partially sighted in Canada with the tools they need to develop skills and pursue rewarding careers. The webinar you're about to watch is a recording. To learn more about this program, visit us online at fightingblindness.ca under the Get Involved tab. The Young Leaders Program is proudly supported by RBC Future Launch. We hope you enjoy this webinar and share your thoughts with us in the comment section below.
Morgan, yes, we have talked quite a bit about cooking. I mean, I could talk about cooking all day long, so that's probably why this consulting business is really fruitful for me, or really, it just makes me really happy. But I will start with just a little bit about myself, and I'm going to share my screen, but there's really isn't much on it, so I'll just I'll explain everything that's on the screen while we're talking. So let me just do this, share. So, as Morgan said, my name is Shari Shaw, and I am the manager of health information at Fighting Blindness Canada. So I've been at the organization for 2 years. I have a personal connection. I have RP, and I was diagnosed when I was 10. So I often connect very well with other people who call into the health information line. And just to pause, I have a quote on the screen that says, it's a Julia Child quote, and it says, "Always remember, if you're alone in the kitchen and you drop the lamb, you can always just pick it up. Who's going to know? Who's going to know?" And that's kind of a theme that I live by, because mistakes happen everywhere, especially in the kitchen. And you're the only one in the kitchen. Who's going to know? So just to go back to myself and give you a little bit of background, I have a couple degrees. I have a degree in kinesiology and psychology. I have another degree in nutrition, and I have a master's in communication with a specialty in nutrition. So my background really is health focused, and a lot of what I practiced in my degrees or at school was about communicating nutrition information to other people. So I've always had a very big passion for food and health, and sharing what I know and what I'm good at with other people so that they can also be passionate about food and health. I have been working as a nutrition consultant and meal planning consultant for a long time, way before Homecooked started. I just used to do it on the fly with friends and help people from everything from managing their weight to getting to know them, their kitchen, to learning how to grocery shop and meal plan. So before I dive into my meal planning presentation, I just want to ask everyone. So, it's okay if you don't want us to talk right now, not a problem, but just to get, hold on, Morgan, will you tell me if anybody puts their hand up?
Yeah, for sure, no problem.
Okay.
I can put the poll up too. I think we have it here.
Do we have a poll? Okay.
Yeah, I have
it. Sure,
it.
Yeah. So the question for the group is, have you ever cooked a meal from start to finish? And by start to finish, I mean planning the recipe, finding the recipe, planning out the ingredients, grocery shopping, cooking, and eating from start to finish. And it's okay if you haven't. I just want to know where we're at. So you can go ahead and answer on your screen.
And if anyone's having difficulty with the poll, you can just send me a message or yell it out too.
Yeah, you can just yell it out. I'm totally okay with that. There's going to be a lot of time for questions.
This is good practice because we'll be doing a poll later for the grant, so it's a good
Right. Perfect.
Our polling skills.
Okay, Morgan, are you going to let me know when
Yeah, we have 11 of 16 people have.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Answered. So
we'll just give everybody a
couple
couple more.
Another minute, and then we can
Great. And then also, if anybody has any questions during, please just shout it out or put your hand up or message Morgan. This is a very casual presentation. It's not formal at all.
Yeah, yesterday the hands up worked really well. So that if you're
Okay.
that, like put your hand up, and then I'll keep an eye and let you know if anyone's waving at us.
Great.
So we have 11 of 16. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to chip in. We'll give you another maybe 30 seconds.
All right. Why don't we, well, let's move on.
All right, so we've got
And if anybody
16 people responded. So 58% of people said yes, and 42% said no.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, I have so many questions for everybody, but so, you know, just shouting out, do people have good experiences with cooking, bad experiences with cooking for the people who have cooked before? You know, I'm happy to talk about any issues that people have. So just keep that in mind. I'll move on for now, but we will come back to this. There's a lot of opportunity for question and answers. So I am going to share some tips for meal planning, and it's kind of for meal planning and being in the kitchen. I find that if you've never been in the kitchen before, even if you have been in the kitchen before, you know, even if, you know, the 58% of people, if you've gone in and cooked a meal from start to finish, it can still be overwhelming and frustrating at times to plan meals ahead of time. You know, there's a lot of things to think about. Restrictions, if you do or don't eat something, budget, which is huge. I mean, the reason why I started meal planning originally was because I was on such a tight budget, and I literally needed to make sure that everything that I was buying in the grocery store, I was using it as much as possible. So if I had extra beans or extra rice or extra meat, I was always making sure that I could use it for another meal down the line. So, and it just sort of helped me learn how to make things go farther, or how to plan meals consecutively one day after another. And as a meal planning consultant, I never expect that after my time is up with a client that they're going to be planning meals 7 days a week. That is very unrealistic. I think there's a lot of things that can get in the way of that. Me personally, I mean, I have a family. I have 2 girls under 5, so it's just not realistic. But just, you know, anybody, single, married, whatever, living at home, it's. I think that max, like the max that you should plan generally is 5 dinners a week. But if you want to plan more, that's totally fine. And if you want to plan less, that's totally fine too. I always try to incorporate leftovers, unless people have a really strong aversion to leftovers, which happens. Some people really just don't like it. But there's a lot of adaptation that can happen when you're meal planning. So it's important to give yourself a break and not get too hung up on making sure that everything goes to plan, even though it's called a meal plan. So my top 5 tips, I'll start with the first one. So the first one is get to know your kitchen. This is really important for everyone, not just people who've never been in their kitchen before. It's really good to know that, you know, what spices you have, what things you've got in your fridge. You know, I always recommend doing sort of a fridge do-over every couple weeks, because things could go bad. You could have something at the back of your fridge that you forgot about. Maybe it's gone bad, or maybe it's still good, and you think to yourself, oh, hey, I have some olives from a couple weeks ago. Maybe I'll just use that up. So let me find a recipe that has olives in it. So I always recommend get into your kitchen, look around, see what tools you have or don't have, so that when you're reading a recipe, which I recommend, that's one of my big recommendations. It's not on here, but I'll get to it. It's number 4. But when you're reading a recipe, knowing what's in your kitchen will help you understand whether A, you can do the recipe, using the tools that you have, or whether you need to adapt, or whether you can't do it at all. Like if you need a stand mixer or a food processor and there's no other way to do it, which there always is. But if you don't want to try to adapt, then at least you know, okay, this recipe is not for me. Or if you don't have a slow cooker or a barbecue or something like that, just so you know what you have and what you don't have. So that's tip number one, is get to know your kitchen, what you have and what you don't have. Does anybody have any questions so far? I don't want to keep rambling. We're good. Morgan, any questions in the chat?
Let me just check. Nope, we're good so far.
Okay, good. Again, feel free. Questions, no questions, fine by me. I'll just keep talking. So number two, this is where we get into the planning. Number two is start with a protein. So as someone with a nutrition background, I will tell everybody that a very healthy looking plate has a little bit of protein, a little bit of vegetable, a little bit of grain, or some other, starchy vegetables, so like potatoes or something. So, having one in each little category will help you. It'll help you stay full or satiated. That's the official term. My friend who's a dietitian calls it the hunger crushing combo. So having a protein and a carbohydrate. So carbohydrates are vegetables, fruits, grains, anything that gives you sugar in the end. So having a protein. So proteins are like eggs, beans, lentils, meat, and fish. So those are proteins. And then having something that's a little fattier. So it doesn't have to be a food like an avocado, which is quite fatty. It could be something that's cooked in oil or butter. So just having a variety of foods on your plate will help you stay full. It'll be tastier, and it'll give you all the nutrients that you need. So when I say start with a protein, I mean, think about what you love to eat. What's your favorite meals, right? I always get my clients to write down some of their favorite meals. And it usually starts with, I really like beef bourguignon, or I really like salmon, roasted salmon, or chili, or, I like something. And you're starting with the protein, because it's easier to look up a recipe when you know what protein you want to eat. It helps you figure out what the rest of the meal is going to be. It's a little bit easier. So that's the second tip. Start with your protein. The third tip is, we have someone.
Danielle.
Yeah, someone just joined, that's all.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No problem. So the third one, which I already commented on before, is think about what you love to eat and expand from there. So when you're meal planning, again, I get people to write down their favorite meals, and it can be a list of 2. It could be a list of 20 meals. Just start thinking about it, because the more you think about it, the more you'll learn and understand what you like to eat and what you don't like to eat. And you don't want to cook things that you don't like to eat just because you think it's healthy. It's not going to, if you don't like to eat it, then it's not going to make you very happy, and it's not going to make you very satisfied after your meal. So if you don't like to eat fish, you don't have to eat fish. So start with what you love to eat, and then just start filling in. I'm going to show you the template after and explain the template, but just start filling in little spots and say, okay, I'm going to have, like on Monday, we do a meatless Monday because it's just so easy. So we call it meatless Monday. So I pick a protein that we're going to have on that day. So tofu or beans or lentils or eggs, and I put it in. And then when I go to look for a recipe, I know that I need to have an egg recipe or a tofu recipe. And I just find one that looks good to me. And then you start doing that for all the other days that you're planning on having a meal on those days. Fourth, and this one's pretty important, especially since COVID, and I'll explain why. The fourth is a recipe is just a guide. And I know I told you at the beginning to read the recipe, but the reason why I tell you to read the recipe is because you need to know what ingredients are mandatory, in that if you don't have them, the recipe just won't taste good, or it won't taste the same. Like if you have a recipe that, what's a good example? Like if you have making a Caesar salad and you don't have cheese, are you going to be okay with that, or are you not going to be okay with that? So you want to know what can be exchanged, what can be changed, and what can't be changed. The next is instructions. You really want to read the instructions from start. I usually, when I see a recipe, I read the instructions from start to finish, because even if you're reading them as you're going, knowing that you've already read them through and you know what's coming next, or you have an idea of what's coming next, it'll help you. And it's as you start to get better and better at cooking and meal planning, you'll understand the order of most recipes, which it's very common the way that most recipes are planned. So the reason why I say a recipe is just a guide is because sometimes you can't find something in the store. You go to get paprika and there's no paprika. So you don't need it. You don't have to say, well, you don't have to like throw out the recipe and find something new. You can still make the recipe with a paprika. Maybe you just put in a little cayenne, or maybe you have like a spice blend that has paprika in it, or maybe you don't really need the paprika, who knows? So, and paprika is probably a bad example, but I just figured I would start with that. So a recipe is just a guide. I found in COVID, when I started ordering groceries on the computer and not going into the store, and I was having someone else shop for me, it became a lot harder for me to control the ingredients that I was buying, because sometimes it just wasn't available, or they couldn't find it, and I would get my order and all of a sudden I wouldn't have the whatever that I needed. If I was making something with bacon, they didn't have the bacon. So I was like, oh, do I really need the bacon, or can I still make it? So, recipe is just a guide. I say that very like casually. When it comes to baking, obviously it's more strict, because you're baking, you need something to rise, or you need something to turn out the way that you're expecting it to turn out. But when it comes to cooking, I find that there's a lot more adaptation that can happen. And the last one I actually already talked about, but I will mention it again. So when possible, and this is more of a nutrition recommendation, but when possible, have a protein, a vegetable, and a grain in your meal. And again, that's sort of just a guide. I talked about the hunger crushing combo, which is protein, a fat, and a carbohydrate. So you just want to make sure you're getting a variety of ingredients in your meal. So when you're looking at recipes, that's what you want to look for. Or you can put two recipes together, like if you want to make roasted chicken and then you find a vegetable recipe and then you make them at the same time. Obviously, that's also okay. It doesn't have to be one recipe that includes all of those things, because sometimes that can be hard. Whew, so I talked a lot. Does anybody have any questions about my recommendations, or any comments, or if anybody wants to yell at me?
Button, Sophia Cali, Shari, Morgan, image, Nikita Smith, image, bottom, image, Nikita,
Morgan, is that someone talking or no?
Image, Nikita Smith, button.
Sorry, Sophia, I'm going to mute you, but if you have a question, feel free to unmute.
Okay, great.
I think it's very funny because as you've been talking, especially now, I did Instacart today and my phone keeps pinging, telling me all the things that they can't find. So
Yeah.
you got to just roll with it.
You really do. I mean,
yeah.
I
was going to say,
oh, you cut out for a second.
I don't know if you guys are living in your own. Shari's recently introduced me to Instacart, and it literally has changed my life. It's the best. I hate going grocery shopping, so getting my food delivered has been really awesome. Very convenient.
It is good, and if you get a really good shopper, then
Yeah,
you have someone who keeps you in touch.
Yeah,
Shari, it's yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
So, you're talking about the hunger crushing combo, which is carbs, protein, and fat.
Yep.
Does it have to be like in a salad? That's it's very clear to me how you can add the healthy fat, right? Like drizzle olive oil or something on top.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're cooking and then you cook your meat in fat, does that count, or does it have to be like a proper fat?
Absolutely. No, that totally counts. The meat that you're cooking will also probably have some fat. So unless you're cooking a very lean, like a pork loin or something, but there will be some fat there. But yes, any fat counts. So cooking in a little bit of oil is also really good.
Currently unmuted.
I have a question.
Zoom.us
Sorry
has
about
new
that.
window.
Excuse my, I have a question. It's Sophia.
Sure.
How do you like do your recipes? Like, is it in Braille or do you have like an app? Like, I'm just curious. Like, I know in like home ec we had Braille, but now with technology, everything's, you know. So how do you like have your recipes and stuff?
So, okay, so for me personally, I have central vision, so I still read. But what I would probably say is, on websites that, like, I use Pinterest. I don't know whether Pinterest, I don't know, Morgan, you can like update me on what's accessible or not accessible. But when you find a recipe online, most recipes nowadays have the recipe in a recipe card. So we can look that, I can look this up to see whether those recipe cards that people use on their app, on their websites are accessible, but then it would read it for you. And sometimes I think it even adds it to a grocery list if you want. And then I think in, like if you're looking through a cookbook, I'm not sure how someone would go through, like I look for other people to help me on the call if anybody else has read a recipe from a cookbook that's used other devices.
This is Danica. I haven't tried this, but I've heard that like smart speakers, like Alexa or Google Home or whatever, you can like ask them to find a recipe, and I don't know if they do actually like read it out, but maybe that's an option as well.
Yeah, they do. So the I'll just make a comment. Pinterest is not super accessible usually, but if you can get someone to help you like take text from Pinterest and put it somewhere else, then it could be helpful. But yeah, the smart speakers, I use Google Home most of the time for recipes, and it's cool because they can list all the ingredients for you. Also, they can go step by step, read all the instructions for you, and then start over or read a step over, things like that. It's pretty flex.
That's great. So it sounds like Alexa is our friend. Alexa and other Google assistants, or Siri maybe.
Nikita had her hand up too. Oh, sorry, Shari. I didn't.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Would you say, Morgan?
I just said Nikita, I think, had a question. Her hand was up.
Oh, okay. Sophia, does that help you?
Currently unmuted.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. And I can probably look more into that too. Nikita.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment about that actually, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I actually use a recipe app on my iPhone, and it's called Yes Chef. And what that is it's basically you can search up recipes on your on that app, and then what it allows you to do, obviously, like Shari said, you want to read everything beforehand, but while you're in the kitchen, it's hands-free. So it's basically almost like a Google Assistant or Alexa speaker, where you can get it to read things out to you, but it's all on your phone basically. It's a certain app that I use when I'm trying to find recipes, which I don't do this very often myself, considering that my family's usually the one that's cooking in the kitchen. I do a little bit of the cooking at home. But when I do use that is actually one that I've found helpful for when I'm cooking. And I do have a question. Do you know of certain websites or certain places where I can get nutritional info about what it is that I'm eating? Reason being is I'm not going to really disclose it on here, but I do have other medical issues that basically lead me to having a more stricter diet, if you will. So it's basically just trying to find out the facts and whatnot of what I'm eating, so that way I have a better understanding of what I'm putting into my system.
Absolutely. So there are some bloggers, like some people who post recipes, who use a recipe card. Like the recipe card that I'm talking about is like a widget. So they add it to their website, and it automatically populates the recipe. And some people use one that includes nutrition information. I can send a few out that that would that include nutrition information. Other than that, if you had specific dietary restrictions that you needed to follow, my recommendation would be to work with someone to make sure that they're watching, like a registered dietitian. So I can go into the difference between dietitian and nutritionist if anybody has that question, but I would work with a registered dietitian to make sure that you're following the proper dietary restrictions. And then you could use certain recipes and certain websites that have the nutrition information. There's also, if you're ever wondering, the Canadian, the Health Canada website has a function on their website. It's called the Canadian Nutrient File, and I can send all of this out so you don't need to worry about remembering it, but it's called the Canadian Nutrient File. And what that is it's a repository. It's basically a nutrition dictionary. So any food, any possible food that you could ever want to know the nutrition information of, you could search in there. So like, for example, if you wanted to know the nutrition breakdown of an apple, you put in apple, and then it would give you all of the options for what type of apple you want, Gala, whatever, Honeycrisp, and then you'd pick the size, so like a medium or a small or a large or whatever, or if you knew the exact measurements, and it would give you the exact nutrition breakdown, everything down to the minerals. Yeah, so, and it does prepared foods as well, not recipes, but it will do like macaroni and cheese, like boxed mac and cheese or something.
Okay, yeah. No, that was more what I was asking about. So yeah, thanks. That does actually help me out quite a bit.
Yeah, like if you needed to know the fat content of half an avocado, you could go there and it would give you all the omega breakdown of the avocado, everything. So I can send that out to you as well. I find it a really useful tool as well. Just looking, sometimes I want to know how much iron is in something that I'm looking at, because the iron is a big nutrient for children. So I'm often looking that up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Does anybody have any more questions?
Sam has her hand up.
Okay.
I just had a comment for Nikita, and I don't know if anyone can maybe back this up. I think I've heard that Diabetes Canada has resources, because they, I guess, know that like a lot of like blindness can often be a result of certain types of diabetes. So I think they even have some accessible ways to deal with like food and certain diets and stuff, but I'm not sure. I heard that a long time ago. I don't know if it's like on their website, or I don't know if you'd actually have to have diabetes to like access that stuff. I don't know how it works, but it might even be worth reaching out to like an organization like that, because they sort of have both. They're dealing with both things, so they have the resources for it. If that, I don't know, would help or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They definitely have recipes on their website that have nutrition information. So that's a really good place to look if you're looking for recipes with the nutrition info. In terms of the accessibility, again, like I haven't checked their accessibility, but you're right, Sam, like they're dealing with a vision loss community as well. So likely, hopefully, their website would be accessible as well. And then if you're talking to a dietitian, then, the dietitian would be able to help you with the nutrition information as well. But that's a really good point, Sam.
Shari, do you know, and I guess it's probably different in every province, but maybe just in Ontario, if you see a dietitian or a nutritionist, is any of that covered, or do you pay out of pocket for those services?
So, Morgan, that's a really good segue into the difference between, I won't go too far down the nutrition rabbit hole, but because I am not myself a registered dietitian, I can explain why. The difference between a registered dietitian and a nutritionist. So a registered dietitian has to complete a 4-year degree in nutrition, like a 4-year scientific degree in nutrition, and then complete a 1-year internship and write an exam. It is a registered profession. which means that they're liable and they serve under the government of Canada. A nutritionist could be it could be anybody. It could be like Joe Schmo off the street. It could be someone who, like me, I did the degree in nutrition. I just didn't complete the internship and the exam. I went and did my master's instead. So, but with a nutritionist, it's not as consistent with the level of education that you're getting. So if you have dietary restrictions or any medical condition, I highly recommend you go to a registered dietitian who has all of the training that they need to help you. And in some cases, a dietitian may be covered under some insurance. Like, for example, if someone had diabetes, then going to see a registered dietitian, I believe part of it is covered. Is that good, Morgan?
Yes, thank you. I think good for questions right now.
This is Dan. I just want to throw in a comment in terms of accessing like dietitian services. Some family health teams or community health centers will also have a dietitian as part of their team, and usually their services are free in a sense that if you're seeing a primary physician there or whatever, you can also see the dietitian.
Yes, that's an excellent point. The family health teams.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Eat Right Ontario also, you can like chat with a dietitian, I think.
So unfortunately, Eat Right Ontario was disbanded.
Oh.
But the dietitian, the Call a Dietitian service was rolled into what is it? Telehealth Ontario. So, but that's just for Ontario. So I don't know what the other provincial services are. But in Ontario, we have a program called Telehealth where you can call and speak to a nurse. And now they threw the dietitians in there as well. So you can call Telehealth and speak to a dietitian. It's just not through Eat Right Ontario anymore, unfortunately, which is very sad because they also had a really good website. But government. Anyway, moving on. So if nobody has any other questions for that at the moment, and again, just jump in if you have more questions. I just have a little bit more to talk about in terms of planning a meal, just to help you a little bit further. And that is at the actual look of a meal plan. So on the screen, I have a spreadsheet, just like a table, that on the top, it's just the days of the week, Monday to Sunday. And down the left side, it says breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is the template that I used for myself. This is the template I use for other people. I'm going to send out the template to through Morgan. So you will all have my template. It's very simple. It's just there to help you remember what you're eating and what you're planning. So again, like I said in the before about starting with a protein, you can start throwing in protein, different proteins onto different days of the week. If for breakfast you like to eat the same thing every day, then you just throw it in there, because then at least it's there. You have to remember to get the ingredients. For lunch, sometimes it's a little bit more hectic because you're either working or you're in school or you're doing something else or you're out. So give yourself a lot of leeway there. Dinner leftovers are always great. Or if you're making some protein, you can make a little extra and then throw it in a salad the next day. That's my move a lot. Or if you're making rice, then the next day you can just throw some eggs on the rice and make bibimbap or something. I don't know. But I really like to use leftovers the next day. That's very helpful for meal planning. And then for dinners, again, you're starting with your protein and then you're finding recipes to match. And so that's this spreadsheet. Does anybody have any questions before I move on from this page about planning your meal?
Would you like to live with me and cook for me? That would be ideal.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Now, like, I'll tell you that some weeks this doesn't happen for me. It just doesn't. I have a really busy week. Maybe I do plan, and then nothing ends up getting made that I actually planned. But I have been doing this for a very long time. And because of that, I'm able to open my fridge, see the ingredients that I bought, and adapt them to some other meal. But it's just a guide, it's, if you come to the end of the week and you didn't make 2 out of the 3 meals, you just move on. And you start fresh the next week. Or if you forget to plan and you are at the grocery store and you need to get some things, again, start with your protein and go from there. That's always how I start at the grocery store if I don't have a plan, a meal plan. Okay, I'm gonna move on for the sake of time. Okay, so the next page is a good practice when you're starting to plan. So this is a table of kitchen tools that you have and pantry staples. And a lot of recipes online nowadays have the tools that you'll need. So if you need a saute pan or a sheet pan, tin foil, a casserole dish, stuff like that. If they don't have that listed in the recipe, when you go through the recipe, either with Alexa or on your own, you can just quickly jot down what you're going to need in the kitchen, what tools you're going to need, so that you can make sure that they're clean, they're where you need it to be. You can take them all at once so that you have them ready to go. And then the next table is the pantry staples. So this is, again, going back to getting to know your kitchen. So when you're looking at a recipe and you see, okay, it needs vanilla extract or soy sauce or vinegar, raisins. Sorry, I'm just looking at this list. It's a very random list. But, all sorts of things that you would that don't really go bad, that you would usually have in your pantry. And that way you can take them out of your shopping list. You don't need to keep them in your shopping list. You can take them and put them on the side, knowing that you already have them. And because you've already gone through your kitchen, you know that you have enough. So you don't just have a tablespoon of vinegar left. You have a little bit more than that. So that's the other table. So again, I'm going to give all of this to you. It's empty so that you can fill it in yourself. The next is your shopping list. And if whether you are doing it online or doing it in person, the shopping list is always really helpful. So look, even though I do it online a lot, I print mine out. You can't see me on the screen, but I'm holding my pieces of paper of this table because I just like to write it down and have it next to me while I'm planning the recipes. And this is organized by section of the grocery store and by category of food, basically. So the first column is produce, so your fruits and vegetables, anything that's fresh. Second is your meat, etc. So all of your proteins, your turkey, your chicken, your beef, your salmon, your tofu, anything like that comes from the meat section or fish section. The next is dairy and eggs. So self-explanatory: yogurt, cheese, eggs. I actually put my tofu in there as well, just because it tends to be in that sort of zone. And then you have your pantry items. So when you're going, I could go through the whole grocery store shopping thing with you, but a lot of people might not be grocery shopping in store right now. So I will save that for another time. But the pantry items are, the center of the grocery store. So the aisles in the middle. And then you have the frozen section, and always do the frozen section last, especially if you're grocery shopping in store. They usually have it in the last section of the grocery store, so that when you're done frozen, you're checking out, so that things are not melting while you're checking out and getting home. And so this is the actual shopping list that you would go through. And as you're going through your recipe, you just plop it in here, or you can have Alexa make this for you. I think you can have Alexa make you a list. So that is the template of how to start a meal plan. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm wondering if you have any advice on how to sort of diversify your meal plan. Like, I feel like I feel like I'm constantly eating the same thing.
Right.
And even in terms of like grocery shopping and stuff, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to try like a new item, but like visually, it's not like I can go and see like, oh, this isn't something I haven't tried yet. So I was wondering.
It's a really good question. You know, and again, I hate to say this, but it often comes back to starting with your protein. So, you know, if you know that you like chicken, but you sort of always eat the same chicken over and over again, looking up a recipe that is a little bit out of your comfort zone, but still has chicken and maybe like an herb that you like, maybe if you like parsley, or a spice that you like, if you like cinnamon or garlic or something like that, just or if you like a genre of food. So I really like Mediterranean food, so I'll find, you know, often look for, like, even if you just go into Google and type Mediterranean chicken and I just start looking through recipes. I just sit sometimes and read recipes without even meal planning. I'm just sitting there and reading them because I want to see if there's something that's going to, you know, catch my eye. But you know, when it comes to trying a new recipe, and especially, you know, not being in the grocery store or not seeing the new ingredients that you've never tried before, there are services at the grocery store that can help you with that sometimes. So I know Loblaws has a dietitian service that you can talk to. So if you were to call them, I don't know if it costs money or not, but you can always call Loblaws and find out. I think Metro also has a dietitian service, and you can let them know, say, hey, I'm looking for a recipe. I'm looking to try some new vegetables, you know, what's available. So you can always try that. You can talk to someone like me. I'm always up for a conversation about meals and recipes. And I hate to say it, but like Instagram is really good for finding new recipes. A lot of people post on Instagram their recipes, and you know, they're often very delicious. So
can I throw in a little plug too for our friend, Mary Mamalidi? She has a great Instagram, and she's just started a new cooking show, which is on AMI TV. Oh boy, Ramya, you might have to remind me what it's called. But it's great, and she's fantastic, and she has a lot of really good, very you know, simple, doable recipes, and her stuff is accessible as well because it's with AMI.
Awesome. And if anybody else has any recommendations, I'm all for it.
Do you have, I know this is a loaded question because Shari, literally, whenever I don't know what to make for dinner, I just send Shari a message like, what should I make for dinner? But do you have favorite like websites or people that you typically follow that you know that they consistently put out really good recipes?
I do. I have a bunch, and I can send them out in the email, like the follow-up email, Morgan. There's some really good websites that I use. I can always judge whether a website is really good if I can follow the recipe from start to finish without having to change anything. Because you know, a lot of the times, like I've written recipes before, I have a bunch of my own, and it's really hard to write a recipe. And so a lot of the time I'm adapting things because I'll see that something is not to my liking, but there are some websites where I will do something from start to finish. I also say that if you are interested in cookbooks, the Ottolenghi Simple Cookbook is a really awesome cookbook because it gives you, it's exactly what it says, it's simple. So it can be short on time, short on ingredients, easier ingredients to find, and they're all really tasty recipes. And then there's a number of other cookbooks. So I can also send that out if we're cookbook fans, but otherwise I can send out websites.
Yeah, Shari recently introduced me to, what's her name? Eden? What's it called?
Eating Out Loud. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Also really good.
Everything in that book is just to die for. It's so good.
Yeah.
What about kitchen like equipment? Do you have any particular like appliance or thing that you use a lot that you wouldn't want to live without?
Oh God, I mean, I have a few. My microplane, like my grater is, or like even just like a box grater, like anything that grates, hands down, because it just saves you so much time and energy from chopping things. I do not like chopping garlic. Even like you can use the box grater with onions if you're gonna make onions, or like a little mini food processor. That also I use a lot, because again, you don't have to chop. You just throw your onion in and your garlic and spin it around a few times and it's chopped, and then you just throw it into your pan. So I use that a lot. Also to make like marinades for chicken or meat. So probably one of those. And I have a heavy bottom pan that I pretty much use for all of my recipes because it's easy to clean and it goes in the oven. Something that goes from the stove to the oven is always really good. One tip I will say is that I always use parchment paper instead of tinfoil. I just find nothing sticks to parchment and it goes in the oven real easy, and it's just cleaner than tinfoil. I used to use tinfoil all the time and I don't anymore. I just use parchment. So we have to be a little bit more careful because it can burn, but it's, you know, even on the highest heat, it takes a while to get to that. But that's all I got for now. Is that good, Morgan? That gives you some idea of what I like to do in the kitchen.
Parchment paper, have you ever tried out yourself or heard other people try out silicone mats?
I've had silicone mats in the past. I think they're great. I find them just like, I honestly don't even know why I don't use them anymore. I probably should. You know, they're easy to clean. They, you know, I think they go in the dishwasher even. And then you just throw them onto the pan again. So I think silicone mats are really great. Highly recommend. I should get myself another one. I think mine got ruined somehow. Yeah. I also enjoy a glove, like a like non-latex. I always keep a box of gloves in the kitchen. For example, like sometimes, you know, if I'm mixing meat or making meatballs or something, I always keep one glove on and one glove off, so that if I needed to touch something and like immediately, I could always just rip the glove off and touch it with my clean hand. And then, you know, you're not contaminating the whole kitchen. When I cook with meat, I'm highly food safe. So I clear my whole counter, make sure that, you know, your sink is clear of any dirty dishes so that when you go to wash your hands, you're not contaminating other things. And, you know, you turn on the tap real low so that you're not splashing water. And then I wash my hands after. Like, I'm very, very food safe when it comes to meat. So having one hand in a glove can be really helpful. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you all for tolerating me. And my final quote, which I have on the screen right now, is that not to worry. Don't worry. It's not always going to come out. The good thing is that you tried and you can try again. It's just food in one end, out the other.
That's a lovely way to end.
Fun. It's true.
It is true.
It's just food. In one end, hopefully out the other. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. And I love this photo that Shari has up on the screen too of her in the kitchen, and that she's like seasoning some incredible sheet pan of, what is it, like squash or sweet
potato.
Looks delicious. So good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm hungry now.
I'm sorry if I made everybody hungry. I just wanted to, can I do my plug? Can I plug? Okay.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Okay, so on a very, very different note, I am the manager of health information at Fighting Blindness Canada, and part of my job is that I help manage our national patient registry. So we have a patient registry for inherited retinal diseases, and it's a national registry. So I just want to make sure or encourage anybody on the call who hasn't inherited retinal disease, who has not looked into the patient registry before or does not know if they are enrolled, to either get in touch with me or get in touch with Morgan, and she'll get the message to me, and we can start talking about it, because being part of the registry is a very important step to in your IRD journey. It helps identify you as a patient for potential clinical trials, and it helps us understand that there is a need for treatments in Canada. If anybody has any questions about the patient registry, I'm here for another few minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting too, like even if you're not particularly looking for treatment or, yourself, it really helps us, know who's out there and how many people are affected by particular IRDs in Canada, and just allows us to know that, yeah, I don't know.
It's like putting your hand up. It's like putting your hand up and saying, hi, I'm here, don't forget about me.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shari.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great way to start our morning. And again, we're thinking about food all day now, which is Derek's asking, is there any registry for people with aniridia?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Is Larissa on the call? Larissa's on the call, right?
Yeah, Larissa's here too. Yeah.
Yes,
So
I'm here. So do you ask me a question? I was warming up soup.
That's fine. It's just like throwing you into the pot.
Yeah, Derek was asking if we know if there's any registry for aniridia. And if we don't know today, Derek, we can look into it, and I can put you in touch with Shari as well. Maybe Shari, you should give your contact too.
Yeah. I do not know if there's a there's a registry.
We can get I can look up, I can ask the team if there is.
We do have a couple of researchers that we're funding who are studying aniridia. So if we can't figure out through the web, we can always reach out to one of them, and they might have some idea as well. So I can work with Shari on that.
Yeah, and Derek, I can share your contact with Shari too. We can get in touch with you. And if anyone does have any questions, Shari is, I think, underselling herself here a little bit in terms of what she does for FBC. She manages registry. She also runs the health information. We call it health information line, but there's a phone number, there's an email. So if you have any questions related to your eye health, as Shari said, she's not a doctor or medical expert, but she can help you find the answers. Even if it's something like, you don't know what kind of questions to ask your doctor, or you're looking for resources, Shari's really amazing at helping people figure that all out. We also have a great website too, with a lot of information on it that Shari updates regularly. So there's that as well. Do you want to give your contact, Shari, for the health information?
Yes. So, I'll send it out with all of our other information, but it's healthinfo@fightingblindness.ca. So health info. And we also have a phone number. Maybe I should put it in the chat, or we'll email it later.
Yeah, I'm going to email everyone follow up, so we can send that all out as well.
Okay.
I think Sophia also had a question about Lever's disease.
Okay.
And so Sophia, I can put you in touch with Shari as well.
Yeah, I can contact you after the seminar. And I skipped the last page, but of my presentation, because obviously, but if anybody has any food questions, I also have another email for my for home cooking. So I can send that out as well. And if you're interested in my website, I'll send that out as well. But contact me anytime for any food or recipe related, even inspiration. I'm happy to share just like a recipe, if you're looking for something.
Yes, we definitely, we chat a little bit about food, don't we, Shari?
Just a little. It starts off most of our mornings.
Yeah,
What did you make for dinner?
Yeah, last night. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shari, for being here and for spending your Sunday, early Sunday with us, or it's noon, but it feels early. I don't know.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.